Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. Guys, today we are back to working over here on the big monster cane mill project, and today my goal is I want to start working on getting this thing painted. Painting to me is not the most exciting thing in the world. In fact, I truly dread painting. It is not something I enjoy at all, but it's part of the process. And when you're doing restoration work, painting is part of it, so you just kind of have to buckle down and do it. Now, to properly paint this machine, even though we've got it kind of partly back together, I need to take it back apart. I need to get the components off of it so I can get into the nooks and crannies and not have to be painting around stuff. So we are going to go ahead and pull the gears off, pull the top roller off, and get those over on pallets where I can manage them in the shop here, and then we'll start working on the main casting. Also, in the process of this, I want to kind of share a little bit of what I have learned about this mill along the way. And it has given us some clues, and I have found some things out from the person who owns the mill, based off of some questions and comments that have come up through the process of restoring this. Also, some little tidbits of information that have come from you guys, the viewers out there, who have either commented or sent me some messages about some things interesting about this mill. So while we're working on this, I'm going to be sharing some of that information along the way. So without further ado, let's get in here and start tearing this thing apart. And thank goodness for the gantry crane, because I couldn't handle these parts without it. Before we start taking it apart, just a little bit about the history of this machine and a couple of interesting things that really jump out at first notice. First off, this mill was made by the Golden's Foundry Machine Company out of Columbus, Georgia. Golden's is a company that's been around since, I think, like the 1830s. They started a foundry and machine shop in Columbus, Georgia, which is right on the fall line, which is kind of where the steamboats could come up to the rivers as far from the ocean back in the day before railroads. It was Columbus, Georgia, Macon, Georgia, Augusta, Georgia, all on the fall line because they could take boats all the way up. That's where the first falls on the rivers were. So below that, they could go all the way to the ocean. Once they kind of got to that fall line, that was as far as ships can go. So that's where big cities kind of popped up on these, on the major rivers that went down to the oceans. So again, Golden's was in Columbus, Georgia. They were a fairly big firm. Interesting, they're still in business today. They're still a foundry. However, they do not make or support these old cane mills at all. At least to my knowledge, they don't. But they actually are still in business in Columbus. They actually have a foundry right up the road from me where I'm at in Cordele, Georgia. They bought out a foundry up there several years ago and are still operating that, as far as I know. But they do not sell or support parts of these or anything like that anymore. The cane mill business is in their distant past, and they're not doing anything with them anymore. This one is a Model 54. I will say that Golden's made several models of this. Let me grab something. So this style cane mill, Golden's actually made 5 different models. A 27, a 36, a 45, a 54, and a 63. That was the size of the mills, or the numbers of the mills. And they all ranged in size from smallest to the largest. The number 54 was the second largest one they made. They did make one that was one size larger than this. For comparison, the Model 27 weighs about 1,600 pounds, whereas this Model 54, which is the 4th largest size they made, according to their catalog information that I have here from the factory, it weighed 7,900 pounds when it was shipped out. The number 63, which was the size that was one size larger than this, by comparison, it weighed 13,000 pounds. I've actually seen pictures of a Model 63 that was in Mississippi, a guy found in the wild, and he sent me some pictures of a while back. I never did get any other information from him on them, but they did make some of these big mills, and they were used in commercial factories that were crushing sugarcane. These bigger ones would have been in a more, industrial type setting, probably not on farm use, but really making, crushing sugarcane at a more industrial scale. What's interesting though about this mill is it's clearly a Golden's. It says Golden's new model down here. It's got Golden's, it's got the patent dates on the base and everything else. But when you look at it, the big gear here, I'm going to zoom you in here, it tells a different story. Let me show you that. So when you look at the big gear, it says right here, Thompson Machine Company, our foundering machine, Thompson foundering machine out of Thomasville, Georgia. Why do we have a gear made by Thompson on a mill made by Golden's? Because surely Golden's would have made the original gear, right? Well, they did. This is one of the clues. This is some of the history that went on with this machine. What happened, I don't know. It's probably lost for history. But at some point in time, this gear, the original gear, would have been damaged, broken, something along the way, and needed to be replaced. Instead of getting one from Golden's, the owners opted to get one from Thompson Foundry Machine. Why? Well, as it turns out, Thompson also made cane mills, but they were making basically copies of the Golden mills, and you could basically take parts off of one and put on the other. There were very few differences between the two. So this right here actually would have been on a Thompson's, would have originally been made for a Thompson cane mill, but again, same design as this. They just copied when the patents ran out on this, they just copied them, which was not a very unusual practice back in the day. We look down here on the base, you see the patent dates. It's got two of them. One's from 1904, one's from 1905. That's the Golden's patents that would have been on this originally. So again, I think a patent life is about 20 years. I don't know exactly, but by the 1920s, the patents would have ran out on this, and basically Golden's ability to protect their technology would have expired. And, just like we have generic drugs that come on the market when the patents expire, people could start making generic copies of their stuff, and there wasn't much they could do about it. I've actually got a book here called The American Cane Mill by Don Howard Dean. This is in print as far as I know. I think you can still order these off of Amazon and other places if you're interested in cane mills. But you can look up Thompson Foundry in here. They have basically a listing. Here's the section on Golden's. But you can look through this and find information on just about any maker of cane mills out there. Let me find Thompson in here. So when you get to the section on Thompson Foundry and Machine, there's not a whole lot of information in here on them, but there is a little bit. But one thing is they have a picture here of a cane mill made by Thompson, and this is basically a copy of the Golden's. And you can see that same gear that we've got on this one over here, right there. There are some differences, some subtle differences, but for all intent and purposes, it was a copy, and that was one of the products that Thompson made. So when something happened to it, again, the owners, instead of going to Golden's, they went to Thompson's, and knowing where this was at, this mill was just south of Cairo, Georgia. Cairo is just basically one county over from Thomas County, Thomasville, Georgia. So Thompson's would have been a lot closer than Columbus. So I'm sure that's why they went there to get this mill, or to get that replacement part for it. But anyway, that kind of explains, at least in theory, as to why we have that different gear on this mill. So another one of the little mysteries that I had about this mill was, and I made a comment when we were working on it, was these bearing caps. These have little ears on them, whereas this has a bigger plate on these over here. Why are they different? And a viewer actually made a comment that that's familiar with the Thompson mill, said that this bearing cap was the style that was used by Thompson, whereas this bearing cap was the style that was used by Golden's. So probably whenever something happened to this big gear, it damaged a couple of the bearing caps, and they just ordered a couple of new bearing caps from Thompson as well. So again, that, at least in theory, kind of explains the difference, or reason that they're different. I imagine that the castings down here up underneath the bottom would have been square to match these rather than having little bosses, but they worked. And, it was probably the quick and easy thing to do to get it going. Also, kind of interest and of note on this mill is we had a piece that was broken out right here. And we know, again, there was some damage under this mill at some point in time where this gear was busted. I don't know when this happened. We also know that this machine was in a fire at some point that we found out from the previous owner. I think that probably happened after the big gear was replaced, because when we got this, all the babbitt was melted out, and my theory is that babbitt melted out during a fire at some point in time. We also talked about how we had some hardness going on in some of the shafting on here, and that was characteristic of having that steel go through a fire. The cast iron goes through a fire, it actually will, when it cools down, as long as you don't throw water on it and cool it down real fast, that will cause it to shrink real quickly and you get breaks. But if you just heat it up and let it cool down like in a fire, cast iron will go back to its original shape and size. That's one of the big advantages of cast iron, is that it's not heat dependent. As long as everything's at the constant temperature, it stays pretty much in the same shape. Whereas steel, if you heat it up and cool it down, you can actually change the properties of it. You can get bending and stuff like that. You can get a lot of movement in steel, whereas cast iron doesn't do that. But don't know when the fire happened, but again, my theory is it was probably when they quit using this was when the fire happened, because all the babbits were melted out and we didn't have any babbit in it when we got it. But I did want to point that out. This was a piece that was broken off. What this was basically a guard that came out around this gear, and there was also a guard that went over the top of this whole gear system here that covered it up and made it where it was not accessible where someone could get their hands or something into it. It'd be nice if we could replicate that again. It'd be a lot of work, a lot of casting. We don't have examples, patterns to go off of or anything like that. And the customer doesn't want to go to that expense. But you know, originally that would have all been covered up. And I'll show you what that looked like. I got some pictures of it in the catalog. Well, here's some pictures again from the catalog on Goldens. And by the way, there's a PDF copy of this up on my website at VintageMachinery.org under Goldens if you want to find this catalog and look at it more closely. But you can see here, that was how they had that covered up. All that was guarded, so there was no way of getting anything exposed in that. And also on the other side, where the gears are coming off the top roller that goes down to the bottom rollers, there was a cover that went over all of that. That is also missing. And additionally, there was a chute here on the side that you would feed the cane in from. All that is missing as well. I'll also note that we've got a horizontal belt-powered mill like this out at the museum that's a Goldens. This is smaller than this one, but we might run out there and take a look at it and kind of make some comparisons as well, because it still has some of the guarding and stuff on it, if I remember right. It's been a while since I've looked at it. But it is the same style as this one, just a different size. Another little interesting thing that came up along the way as people sending me information is Jeff Jocelyn, who is one of our historians over at the VintageMachinery.org website. He's been working with the website for 20-something years and has done an outstanding job of doing a lot of research. He's really good at getting and finding information about these old machines and the manufacturers and putting that over on the website. Well, he saw Thompson Foundry Machine, and on his own, he started doing some research and dug up a newspaper article from 1949, which I found interesting. Now, when I started working on this mill, I kind of nicknamed this the monster cane mill because of its size. This is the biggest cane mill I've ever worked on, really ever seen in person, other than pictures of some of the bigger ones. And it's just so big, I called it the monster cane mill. Well, he found an article from, again, 1949 about Thompson, and it was about their monster cane mill. So here it is, the monster cane mill made and sold at Thomasville. Thomasville, when bigger cane mills are made, the Thompson Foundry Machine Company will make them. This might be termed the slogan of this company, which has just completed the manufacture of one of the largest sugarcane mills to be shipped out of this country, a 20-ton monster which is now being created and shipped to Venezuela. The giant mill, which weighs 40,000 pounds, is known as the Bowman 74 and is so powerful of the big rollers through which the cane is forced and ground that it will get 85% extraction of juice, whereas the typical types of mills, it is stated, will only get 55% extraction. It sells for the sum of $16,000. So, yeah, 40,000 pounds. Again, this one a little less than 8,000 pounds. This one doesn't look so big anymore. I would love to have seen a picture of that big cane mill that they shipped out in '49. But anyway, I thought it was interesting, the connection of the Thompson Foundry Machine with this, and me, unbeknownst, using the term monster cane mill, which had evidently already been taken. I'm going to keep calling it the monster mill, though, because it's pretty big. Let's see if we can start taking this thing apart. We got this over here on the pallet on some cribbing. And it's ready to roll, so I think we got this done. All right, I think we got our main bottom casting ready to kind of start working on here. I got it positioned around like I want it. I also put some plastic down up underneath the bottom so we don't get paint on the concrete floor. Hopefully that'll make cleanup a little bit easier. First things first, I want to come in here and get a little sandpaper or something. When we were working on this, I got a couple places where we spilled some Babbitt and just got some scratches and whatever in the primer. I just want to kind of clean it up a little bit, then we'll probably vacuum it down, wipe it down, and start painting. So let me get to work. All right, let's before I start painting, I want to trim off these bolts on the top. They're sticking out way too far on all of them, and it's making it difficult to get that roller on and off because I'm having to go up that extra height to get to the clear, and there's just no reason for it. So I'm just going to take my porta-band here, and we're going to just zip these off. Finally, I think I'm ready to start wiping this down. I've got some mineral spirits here and a rag, and I'm just going to go around the whole mill here and just give it a good wipe down. This is just going to remove any oil or grease or anything like that, as well as pick up any dust that may be on the casting, and you just kind of get it ready for the paint to go on top of. This is just a little cleaning. So give me a little bit of time here. I'll go around and get this completely wiped down, and then we can start painting. Got it wiped down, and we are ready to get started on painting here. And I'm going to be using an enamel paint. This is made by Sherwin-Williams. I really like their paint. I've had really good luck with it doing machine restorations before. This is a commercial grade, heavy duty enamel. And the color is a red color, which is the color that these Golden's mills were painted from the factory. Get in here and get this kind of mixed up here. I got this paint a while back. It's been sitting, so it needs to be stirred up. I'm going to set this over on the table where I can do this a little bit better. I'll be right back. All right, I think that's mixed up a little bit better. As far as the color that I'm using, there's not a whole lot of documentation on the exact color match. All I've been able to find in my research is that it was a kind of a brick red color is what they used, and I just went to Sherwin-Williams and looked at paint swabs and found something that looked a brick red to me, and that's what I went with, and I had them custom mix this. Now I'm painting this with a brush. There's a lot of debate out there as to how to best paint machines, whether you brush it on or paint it on, and at the end of the day, I don't know that it really matters that much, particularly when you're painting a rough casting like I'm painting here. This is not a smoothed out, sanded out finish like you would have on a car or something like that, or even on a woodworking project. This is a very rough casting. And so, getting a perfectly smooth finish really isn't possible because the casting is rough. So I like to use a brush. I can tell by when I've been working on these old machines in the past that a lot of them were originally painted with a brush. You can still see brush marks in a lot of these old machines. And I got a brand new brush, and I got some bristles that are wanting to come out of it. It's aggravating a little bit here. Ultimately, at the end of the day, the main reason that I like to brush paint more than spraying it is I don't really have a good place to spray. I don't have a spray booth that's, where you can keep all your overspray captured, etc. All I've got is my open shop here, and I don't really like I don't like painting with a big sprayer in here because you get this spray going everywhere. Now, if you got an area to paint in your shop and you're set up to do it, there's absolutely nothing wrong with spraying it. In many ways, it's probably easier. But I just prefer brushing it on, and that's what we're going to do here. So I'm just going to go around this thing and give it a coat. I'm probably going to have to come back and put a second coat on this to get a good even coat. That's just par for course. Well, we've got the first coat of paint on this, and it's red. Looks good, I think. This is, again, what the color would have been originally, or something very close to this. We don't have a perfect paint match or paint swatch to compare it to or anything like that, but this is kind of the color that I see most of these mills being painted, so that's what we're going to kind of continue doing. I am going to paint the base of it down there black. I'm going to do that a little bit later on after this dries. And I need to talk with the owner and find out if he wants to paint the gears and everything red or whether he wants to go with a contrasting color or whatever. Kind of up to him. But we are making progress. This thing is coming along slowly but surely. This enamel paint, it takes a little while for it to really dry and cure. Usually it'll be dry to the touch, within 24 hours, less than that. It's cool out right now. It's probably a little bit longer, but it will stay kind of soft for a week or so, and then as it has a chance to cure, it'll get harder and harder and harder. Eventually, you get a really nice enamel, coating on there that will hold up very well. But the downside to enamels are they tend to be a little bit soft until they cure. So and particularly with the cooler weather, it's going to be a little while before this is going to be really durable paint. But give it a couple weeks, and yeah, it's as tough as nails. So that's kind of where we're at. All right, let me figure out what we need to do with the other stuff, and we'll kind of continue on with our project here. Well, guys, this is the next day. I let this dry overnight, and it is dry to the touch. So it's good. I was a little bit worried with it being cool like it is right now. This might take a little while to get hardened up, but it is dry to the touch. I'm sure it's still soft. It'd probably scratch pretty easily until it cures a little bit more, but looks good. I am going to put another coat of red on this. There's a couple of places where you can see some thin places in it, but no big deal. I did come in and with my skid steer and pick this up. I got it sitting on my sawhorses, and I want to get this base down here painted black. And I also want to be able to kind of get up underneath it and make sure that we got things painted up underneath it as well. So it should be pretty safe sitting on these big heavy-duty steel sawhorses that I have. So that'll allow me to kind of get in there and work on that. So I'm gonna probably just let this sit for the rest of the day. And before the day's over, I'm gonna try to get the black on here. But before I do that, I want to try to get these gears and other parts painted red as well. So I've already got one of them pulled up here. Let me show you what I got going. So here's the big gear. I got it on a pallet where I can move it around. I got some cribbing kind of holding up the drum behind it. And I'm gonna go ahead and get this painted next. Of course, I have a little area that I'll have to flip it over that I won't be able to get the bottom, but we can get that. That won't be no big deal at all. So this is next, and then the gears and the pulley, we'll bring those in and get those painted, and then I'll get working on the black on the base over there. Probably got the better part of a day of painting out here today, which again, painting's not my favorite thing to do, but yeah, it's got to be done. So let's just get in here and knock it out. I'm probably just gonna turn the camera off and turn the radio on and get to going painting here. This is gonna, like I said, probably take the better part of the day. I'll bring you guys back once we kind of get a little progress report as we go. I'm not gonna make you watch me paint. I'm just too boring. Well, one step closer here. I've got the big gear painted. I also went ahead and put a second coat of paint on the casting back there. I actually found it a lot easier and could see in some places with it up like that was difficult to see when it was on the ground. So that I went ahead and just gave it another coat as well. I'm gonna go ahead and move this big gear out of the way, bring in some of the other gears, and continue on with my painting. Slowly but surely, making progress here. Well, guys, I've been at it all day and made a good progress here. Got a second coat of paint on the main casting. Here's some other castings that I've got a first coat of paint on. Some of these are going to have to be flipped over and painted on the bottom side, upside down. So we're going to have to come back and do another coat on some of this. I went ahead and got the base painted black and went ahead and highlighted the letters there on there. I think it really kind of makes that pop out and stand out. You can see, I see a lot of the mills have been restored online and they usually have them painted yellow like that. So I think it looks good. So I decided to follow suit and do the same thing. So like I said, I'm not done painting yet, but I've got a big chunk of it done. But I am going to call this one on a video now. I'll probably finish up the painting off camera over the next couple of days. Like I said, as this stuff dries, we'll have to put second coats on it and so forth. It's time consuming, it's slow, but it's necessary. It's got to be done. And the rewards are going to be good, I think. So anyway, we're making good progress. And with that, we're going to probably sign off right here and get out of here and come back with another episode down the road. So with that, that is a wrap. As always, guys, thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Those thumbs up and comments are always greatly appreciated. Please hit that bell icon up there to get notification when new videos are posted. As always, a big, huge thank you to those who support the site financially through Patreon, PayPal. There's links for that down in the description below if that's something you can help out with. And with that, we're going to get out of here. Again, we'll catch you on the next video. Thanks for watching.